I want to start with the state of Canada's COVID-19 pandemic because new numbers underscore just how deadly a crisis this has become in long-term care homes. The death toll in Canada has reached 1,240. Today, Quebec reported the highest daily number of deaths of any province to date, 143. Now, that's partly because the province changed the way it tests post-mortem, but it's also due to a swelling of outbreaks in hundreds of Quebec's long-term homes. It's so bad, Premier François Legault has called on the federal government for formal help.
So we're concentrating our efforts in nursing homes where the situation is critical. The lack of staff remains our biggest concern.
Stanley Pinnell is one of the 31 people who died at the Herron Residence in Dorval since March 13th. He passed away on April 8th at the age of 96. What caused his death, though, is unclear. His daughter, Moira Davis, lives in Creighton, Saskatchewan, and she wants to know what exactly did lead to her father's death. Hi, Moira. Good to see you. Thanks for making time for us.
Hi, Vashi. Thanks for having me.
I think like many Canadians, I watched your interview yesterday with my colleague, Rosemary Barton. I was very moved by it. I know we've heard from many other people, other Canadians who were as well. I know you've had some developments since then, but I just want, if you don't mind, you to just sort of help us understand, and viewers who might not have caught that interview, exactly what happened.
Well, we started receiving emails from the home. I did originally on the 27th of March. So we've been following BC, what had been going on in Ontario. So we got the first email saying there was one case. 48 hours later, late on a Sunday night, we now had 3 cases. Monday the 30th, I spoke with the leasing agent, asked specifically if there was anybody from my dad's floor. She advised yes, there was. So I went, okay, this is not going to go well. After that, we received an email on the 1st of April saying there were 5, and then on the 5th of April saying there were 12 confirmed cases. So I'm struggling with how we're talking about 31 deaths and 5 confirmed cases of COVID when I have an email from the 5th of April saying there were 12 confirmed cases of COVID.
And what exactly happened to your dad?
My dad got sick of something, and I'm not saying it's COVID or not COVID. At the time of his passing, I was very adamant that he be tested. I talked to a nurse Tuesday afternoon and specifically said, has he symptoms? Have you tested him? And she didn't answer to the symptoms, but she said, we've stopped testing a few days ago, and we just assume everybody has it. So I went, okay. So then I said to her, well, I don't want him to be uncomfortable, but once he's passed, I would like him tested. Didn't get an answer. So then 3 hours later, I received a phone call from Dr. Herman, also advised me my dad wasn't doing well. Both calls were involved with looking for compassionate care. At the time, I kind of flipped out on Dr. Herman and used some 4-letter words I can't use here, and basically said, like, does the left hand not know what the right hand is doing? Because I said, you're the second call I've gotten. And basically, Dr. Herman said to me, there were some issues at the home, and the Quebec government has stepped in. All of the emails I received prior all led me to believe that the reason the government had stepped in was due specifically to COVID. Like, it's a SWAT team coming in and they're going to teach people about how to use PPE and know, to be safe. And I thought it was basically standard practice because I'm not from Quebec. I don't know how their system works. So I told Dr. Herman on Tuesday night, once he's passed, I want him tested. Then Wednesday, I watched Legault lunchtime, and he says, everybody in a care home and every worker will be tested. Going, great. Meantime, my dad's body has been taken by the funeral home. And then Saturday, he was cremated, Saturday morning. Well, or my sister believes it was Saturday morning. Well, Friday afternoon, I have a friend message me on Facebook and says, have you seen this article? And it was the Montreal Gazette article about what had gone on into the home. probably since about the 14th of March.
And was that the first indication you had of how widespread it was?
Absolutely. It was the very first thing. And I was like, oh my God, did he die from COVID? Did he die from neglect, or both? And then I watched the very first interview with the nurse that swept in and talked about how in her 20-some years of experience, she had never seen anything like that. And I thought, oh my God, what has my dad's life been for the last 4 weeks? Because he was bedridden, and he was in a wheelchair. He was legally blind. He was going deaf. And I do know that once the home sent the first email, every single patient, resident, was told that they were going to be staying in the rooms and having all their meals there. So I phoned my dad every day, and I could tell that it didn't matter what time of day I phoned him, he was always flat on his back. So I'm starting to get a little panicked as the emails are coming and the emails are coming. And then on the Friday before he passed, I phoned and I couldn't get through. And I phoned the nursing station, and all it did was click. There was never an option to leave a message or a French voicemail or anything. So then I emailed the leasing agent and said, have they taken him to hospital? Like, what's going on? And she emailed me back and said, if there's any change in his condition, or anything to do with his health, they're going to get a hold of you. Okay. So I could tell that my dad wasn't doing well. It wasn't a case of coughing or anything like that. It was more simply a case of he was like a bright light that was just slowly fading out. He just sounded weaker and weaker. And then on Monday, before he passed, I phoned and I talked to him about 3 minutes and 29 seconds, I think it was. And it sounded like he had no teeth in and he had marbles in his mouth, like he could hardly talk. Mm-hmm. And so I did all the talking. And then we always say at the end of our conversations, I always say, I love you, Dad. And he always says, I love you too, sweetheart. And so then I went, I got to get some information, like what's going on? So I emailed the second floor nursing station and assumed, because I still didn't know what was going on, that the government really had taken over, and assumed that somebody would know. And so I asked very yes, no questions. In fact, I put in the email, just answer yes, no. Does he show signs of COVID? Have you tested him for COVID? Has he been out of bed in the last 10 days? Has he been dressed in the last 10 days?
Any response?
Nothing. Because didn't know at the time, and we didn't find out until this Friday passed, that the Quebec government couldn't get into their systems.
Right.
So I sent that email Monday afternoon, and now I'm freaking and stewing and freaking. And so then I thought, okay, I'm going to resend the email, and this time I'm going to copy the leasing agent. And then 2 hours later, I got a phone call from a nurse who basically said that he isn't doing well. And I said, so is the plan to take him to hospital? Because that's what they've been doing. And so she kind of went, and so I finished the sentence for her and said, if he goes to hospital, he's not going to make it, right? And she said, yeah. So she says, we think he's better off to remain here. And I went, okay, I don't have the medical power of attorney. My sister does. So made a few frantic phone calls, got a hold of my sister. My sister phoned back to this same nurse because we had a cell phone number at that point. And the nurse does not recall talking to me, does not recall talking to anybody about my dad specifically. And it was 90 minutes later.
Okay.
So I'm like, so then my sister and I are phoning back and forth and going, did she get the wrong person? Right. Is he really okay then? We didn't know.
Can I ask you if, I know that that you, as you mentioned, you really wanted to get a test after your dad.
Absolutely, and we still don't know.
And I want to know also, I understand you got a call this morning because we do know that
Yes.
the government has finally intervened. What have they told you about what their actions are going to be here?
So what I did, and I encourage any person who is involved in this with having family members there, is to register with that 514-630 number, which I did on Saturday. And what I did was, when I realized that my dad had been cremated and that we don't know if he'd been tested, I was kind of in a panic to let them know that swab his room, because we knew that the Diamond Princess still showed COVID 17 days later in the rooms. So I got a phone call Sunday night, I should say, to phone the coroner, and I phoned the coroner and she phoned me back, and I gave her the Coles Note version of what had happened. And she said she would make sure that his room was locked down. And then today I received a phone call from the manager of public health from the CLSC in Pierrefonds, advising me that my dad's room had been shut down and locked. There's signage on it, they cannot enter. And she also told me that anyone who was no longer in their room, i.e. people who have passed or people who are in hospital, their rooms have all been locked down as well.
Right.
So I said I know that this isn't going to fix overnight, and that I would be the contact to try to get my dad's stuff out of the room. But I did request that once they were able to get into the room, and it probably is going to be weeks, that somebody take pictures just so that we know what's there, because neither my sister and I really remember. So they said they would do that. And the woman I spoke with, the manager, also told me that the police had already come in and started doing their investigation and taking pictures and the like. So.
Well, I know that there are a lot of people in your position right now who are in the same boat, looking to see what exactly the government's going to do here and if they're able to get any answers. I really appreciate you sharing your story with us tonight, Moira, and I'm wishing you and your family the best. Our condolences for the loss of your dad.
Thank you.
Thanks. That's Moira Davis in Creighton, Saskatchewan. Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.